Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. We're glad to have you with us this week. We would like to thank our sponsors, Judicial Medicine and J. Franklin Automotives, and always the people here at WMUB, Mercer University, Channel 28. And we ask that you like us on YouTube and ask that you subscribe to us on YouTube. So we thank you so much for joining us this week here in the Spotlight. But in the Spotlight this week is Anita Howard. Anita Howard is a candidate for the Macon Judicial Circuit for the District Attorney, which consists of Bibb, Crawford, and Peach County, I think, here in the Mid-State area. We'd like to welcome you to our program, Ms. Howard.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, first of all, let me congratulate you. As a former elected official myself, I know what it takes to run a campaign. You may have to make a lot of sacrifices, you and your family. So let me congratulate you on offering your service to the people of this district and wish you well.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, what inspired you? I understand you've been in the DA's office for quite a while now, some 13, 14 years.
Yes, sir.
So what inspired you to go for the top job?
Well, this is my community, and as we know, the FBI ranks the Macon area as the third highest when it comes to violent and property crimes. And I just think that and know that there's more that we can do, and I believe that we can do better and we will do better.
Now, of course, your focus is on criminal justice overall, but criminal justice reform has been in the news for a lot of late. What exactly does it mean when you hear the word, when we hear the layman, the layperson, when we hear criminal justice reform? What does that mean to us?
Well, that is one of my platforms. That's one of my focus for my platform. Criminal justice reform, what that means is that we have a system, a criminal justice system that we know is broken. We have to be smarter about the way that we prosecute individuals and the way that we return them to our community. We want to do that fairly, and we also want to take a holistic approach to that. And so we want people to be able to sustain themselves, and what that means to me is employable when they return to the community.
Well, tell us a little bit about Anita Howard. We know what you want to do. Tell her, like you said, you were inspired because you love the community. You're from here. You're from the Middle Georgia area, born and raised in Warner Robins, I understand. Your husband is from Macon, so you have deep roots here in this area.
Deep roots, yes, sir. I have family ties in Crawford County and just roots in Fort Valley. My father is a Fort Valley State University alum, so I spent many years as a child going to the football games, going to homecoming. So we definitely have a lot of ties to the Middle Georgia area, and yes, I'm a daughter of Middle Georgia. Yes.
You spoke about the woes of Macon in particular when it comes to violent crimes and property crimes. So
yes, sir.
We have 3 counties, but you're saying Macon, if we can get Macon right, are you saying that we'll get the rest of the district right? Or this just happened to be the biggest population, so that's where your focus will be?
Well, my focus is on Bibb, Crawford, and Peach. The FBI statistics was for the actual Macon area, so it encompasses other counties in this area as well.
I think our metro area consists of Forsyth and Twiggs County, Macon metro
and I believe
area.
Jones may be in
Jones,
there as well,
yeah.
Yes, sir. So I definitely will focus. I've met with leaders and just other community advocates in all 3 communities to figure out what their concerns were, and I believe that as district attorney, it is my job to focus on the concerns of the people. Another part of my platform will be community engagement. I will govern from the community, not from the courthouse or a podium. I think it's very important to be involved with the community, know their concerns, because as a district attorney, you can only be as good as the community that you serve. And so that will also be what I will do as district attorney.
But district attorney has a lot of power. Matter of fact, almost has all power. The power to indict, the power to bring cases or not to bring a case. So as you look at the disparity in sentencing, as we've heard, especially when it comes to minority men and even minority women, there's a big disparity. How can that be addressed? And what do you think the main cause of that, if there's a disparity? We knew it wasn't crack cocaine and powder cocaine, that type of thing, but people are even say now there's a disparity in the length of sentences that's given to minority men and women as opposed to other. But will the DA have any say in that, or is that strictly up to the judge's sentencing?
The district attorney is the most critical role in the criminal justice system. They do, as you said, a prosecutorial discretion is given to the district attorney. And so what I know is that we cannot have assembly line justice. We have to take each case and each person individually and figure out what best is needed for that individual, also while keeping the community safe. You have to balance that. And so I think that we can do that better by working with organizations and in the community and to promote that. And so, for instance, we had this young man who had gotten a drug charge, and typically he was supposed to do some type of, some period incarcerated, whether that be at a prison or a detention center or something of that nature. Well, I work closely with the activists in my community now where I work as the assistant district attorney. And one of them came to me and said, this is what is going on with this young man. He had actually gotten a full-time job. He was able to sustain himself. He was current on his child support. He's a father. And so he was able to provide me with all of that information and documentation. And then because of my workings with law enforcement, my good relationship that I've built over the years with the law enforcement community, I was able to go to that officer, to that investigator, and say, this is what we have. Now, if we send him to prison because it is a nonviolent felony, you understand that he is going to be out probably within 3 to 6 months, even if we give him 3 or 4 years, because that's just how things are done. And so with the Department of Corrections, and so I said, but now he's employed. I showed him the documentation, so we were able to work something out where he was able to remain in the community, keep his job, still be active in his child's life, and keep his job so he can support his family. So when I say criminal justice reform, I am talking about looking at each individual and, again, being creative and finding alternatives when we can to prison. Now, we do know that there are some folks that need to go to prison, and I've never shied away in my nearly 15-year career. I've never shied away from seeking punishment for those who commit extreme crimes.
Yeah. I've heard say in the prison system, there are some people we're mad at and there's some people we're afraid of. So we want to put the ones in prison we're afraid of. The ones we're mad at, we don't necessarily want to arrest them. Is that what you're saying? Basically?
Well, I've heard that logic too. I choose to look at it from a different perspective. I look at it from the perspective of folks that folks that need a secure facility and folks that don't need a secure facility.
In terms of rehabilitation,
right, exactly. Yeah. And that they can be helped and in the community, but we can still seek justice for victims of crime, because that is important. And so that's how I choose to look at it. I have heard some individuals use that terminology, but I think it's a different perspective because if people have, especially children, if children have not been given the necessary tools to succeed, or they have had a life-altering situation occur, then I feel like as adults, leaders, we should not be mad at them. Yeah. We should meet them where they are and give them the necessary tools that they need to succeed.
Yeah, but that takes a holistic approach. The DA can't do that by his or herself. That takes the entire community. But let's get back to the violence that's happened in this community. Mm-hmm. We on the post shootings in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. But if you look in the aggregate, last year we had more people murdered in Macon in 2018. More people murdered in Macon than was murdered in not San Antonio, but El Paso this week. But yet, we don't get the outcries not there. I mean, all over the news for the last few days, because this is a mass shooting, but yet a life is a life. 22 lives are 22 lives. And we had, I think, 32 or 35 that we lost here in Macon. Are we put enough emphasis on gun control locally? We say, when this happened, we say, oh, we got to have gun control. What are we doing locally, and what can we do locally? More law enforcement in conjunction with the DA to get the guns out of the streets, off the streets in this town or in this circuit that you are vying to represent.
Well, I think you're exactly correct. I think that we have to continue to talk about things that are concerning for the citizens here, for our community, and that is a concern. And so I've gone to various neighborhood watch meetings, because what we know is that people in the community, they typically know when things are going to happen before we do. And so we've got to keep those lines of communication open so that folks feel safe. And they know us. We're not strangers to say to law enforcement, to say to a representative from the district attorney's office, this is what's going on, or this is what, you know, has been said in the community. And that is definitely an area I want to focus on. Also, since we have had the various shootings here, local pastors have started initiatives. There's one being started. I've attended some of those meetings as well. Heal the Hood, and so those are the type things. When I say community engagement, we've got to, as a district attorney, get outside of the DA's office and talk with folks in the community and figure out what they've implemented and how we can help with that. Those are efforts that we can definitely help with, and that is what I want to do. And also focusing on criminal justice reform, I believe that if people are employed, then crime will go down. Criminal justice reform is something that's been implemented throughout the United States, and it is working, but it has not been done here, and that is what I want to bring to the Macon Judicial Circuit.
So you're talking prevention more than incarceration. You want to be on the prevention side. You want to work holistically. You want to work with the school system, law enforcement, the community at large, the ministers you mentioned, that we can do some prevention here. As the old folks used to say, a pound, I think it's a penny of prevention worth a pound of cure, whatever it was.
Yes, sir, I know the saying, yes, sir.
So you want to deal with that aspect of it, but keeping in mind that there are some people who need to go to jail, and
That's
you will
right.
not hesitate to recommend to the judge to throw the book at them, those who are terrorizing our community.
Right, that is exactly right. I've not hesitated in the nearly 15 years that I've been doing this, and I will not hesitate to do that.
Yeah.
But what we know is when we are sending individuals to prison, these need to be individuals that, that we know beyond that they're not going to be able to be rehabilitated in the community because of the heinous crimes that they have committed, or maybe because of their lengthy criminal record. And they have been given opportunities, but they have either not taken advantage of those opportunities, or but for whatever reason, they find themselves back in the criminal justice system, victimizing more individuals. Yeah. So we can't allow that to happen either.
But you believe in alternative sentences, is what you're saying. Community service, that's the first, especially the nonviolent.
Right.
You said no waste valuable resources, bed space on jail space on a nonviolent criminal person when we can do something else. Is that your position?
Yes, sir, that is my position.
What's your position on marijuana? I know locally we have, when they call it cannabis, when it's in certain neighborhoods, whereas other neighborhoods it's marijuana. But what's your position on the legalization of recreation as well as medical? Well, medical marijuana, I know that's something the state has to deal with. But locally, the local communities said we're not going to issue a ticket, it's going to be $75. But isn't that a law, a state law that you have to enforce that says this is a class 1 substance, and if you're caught with it, you have to be punished? Or can you just turn a blind eye to it?
Well, I'm going to always follow the law, and so as a district attorney, and I'm also going to again take into consideration always the concerns of the citizens, and so we do know that issues and policies and laws surrounding marijuana, whether it be loose leaf or medical or what have you, we do know that those are changing throughout this country and this state, and so those are evolving. And I will always follow the law.
Yeah, being a woman, of course, and been born. You've been one all your life. And,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A husband. I mean, a wife. Are you a mother as well?
I am a stepmother
Well, that's
of
a mother.
three.
That's
Yes,
a mother.
I am a stepmother.
You're a mother.
of three.
You're
Yes,
a mother. You're
yes.
nurturing.
That's right.
You're
Yes,
nurturing.
sir.
So what I hear a lot about, what psychologists begin asking now about children that wind up in criminal activity, not what's wrong with that child, but what happened to that child.
Right.
And I think that's the question. What happened? What led these children? So do you, as a DA, do you try to look, like now they're saying this is psychology, this is a mental problem that got a shot. Do you look at that as well? Do you try to look at the whole individual, how he or she has raised, what kind of home they came from, and how they come? Do you take that in consideration, or you just look at the law?
Oh, I absolutely take the holistic view into consideration. My undergraduate degree was in psychology. I'm a double psych major. Also, I was a juvenile prosecutor for years in my circuit, and was very instrumental in implementing the first juvenile division at our district attorney's office, as well as teaching best practices in different locations throughout the state. And that is, the juvenile code requires that we look at children from a holistic viewpoint. What is in the best interest of the child? So I would definitely do that. So how did this child get here? To this particular point, what has been done? Also offering services to the parents. We did that a lot as far as wraparound. We used to call them wraparound services. Yeah. Where services would be placed in the home and we could get a better idea of the interaction between the parent and the children. So if, the parents needed help with providing the guidance and the discipline in a more positive manner, we can do that as well. So absolutely. I've also, for years in my circuit, I taught life skill classes. It was through a program called Arise. That is a program that they use in Florida. And I taught that program to at-risk youth as a preventive method and, again, as a holistic approach. That's what I've dedicated my career to, trying to impact the lives of young people. Definitely seeking justice for victims, but trying to impact the lives of young people so they can become productive citizens, as well as just being fair, regardless of your socioeconomic status, but just bringing a sense of fairness to the criminal justice system. I am a career prosecutor. Yeah. This is what I've done. Yeah.
Well, that's good. So you bring that level of experience. We're glad that you bring that level of experience to the position, but you also bring the level of sensitivity of being a woman. We know that domestic violence is real, not only in this community, but throughout our nation. And a lot of the murders that we've had have been crimes of passion, fighting over men killing women because a woman killed a man because he was abusing her or what have you, at least I claim. What can we do? What would you do? What type of program would you put in place to address domestic violence in this circuit?
Again, we would make sure that victims of domestic violence receive the necessary support that they need. And then as far as preventive, what we don't realize is domestic violence actually, well, a lot of people don't realize, I'm sure you do, but domestic violence actually starts sometimes in middle school age children and definitely in high school age children. So one of the things that I have done in the past as well is gone to the local high school and talk about teen dating violence and just kind of accepting that, because we know it doesn't always start physical. It can be verbal. It can be in the sense of mental, just a control. And so that's what I talk to high school students about and focus on high school young ladies to talk to them about that. And I would continue those efforts. We talk about teen dating violence, we talk about teen suicide prevention, and we talk about teen sex trafficking. So I've done that, and those are some things that I am definitely a preventive. I believe in prevention. Yeah. And so, and I do believe that women, not only do you have the qualifications and the experience, as you said, but you do have a sensitivity and a compassion that has brought success over the years for me. So I definitely agree with that. Thank you.
So far, we've talked about juvenile criminals. We've talked about hardened criminals, what we would call, you know, the street person with a gun, a 38 special. But there's other crimes that's going on in this town, white-collar crime. The current DA, and I've been on to him about this. It's not new. He sees this, and that is. But I saw some movement, and that is on these illegal gambling machines. Yeah, that's what they are. You can call them anything you want. Amusement machines. They are gambling machines, and they're in our stores. They're in our town. They're in this district, and they're sucking a lot of money, some $300 million a year, leaving our communities without tax being paid on it. What would be your position on those? Working with the state, because these machines are licensed by the state, but yet local law enforcement can enforce them. Would you be as aggressive in enforcing the laws dealing with these machines as your opponent and Mr. David Cook?
Well, as district attorney, again, I will follow all the laws that are in place for all type crimes. I will focus on what the community has said to me or their concerns. I do know that these machines are,
sucking a lot of money out of the community, number one.
Well, and I also know that the legislature actually put guidelines on these machines. And I also know that I think the governor put out a statistic, maybe a news release or some statistic about the amount of money that has been placed into the Hope Scholarship. So I think there just needs to be a balance of what the community's concerns are.
But we know, Madam DA, we know that people are not playing those machines to get a bag of potato chips or they can redeem the money for whatever they sell in these stores. We know that that's not why they're playing. They're playing those machines to get money. And would you be aggressive in making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do, as opposed to families? Some people go in there and spend their entire paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I hear about families who are destroyed because of these machines. I know a couple of people personally. Would you, because it's not just that criminal, but it's also a social and economic issue that's going on in our community. In other words, would you put resources into it, and once they are brought to justice, would you ensure that they get as much, if they're found guilty, that they would be punished just like any other criminal?
I think all crime, I think definitely all crime should be punished, and I will follow the laws to that regard. And let me say this, I don't, and I've not seen, and maybe you have, one of my focuses for anything involving with these illegal gambling machines would be the victim. I hear a lot of talk about the victims, but I've not seen any resources going back to help the victims. And what we know about any type of addiction, because that's what we're calling it.
Yes,
and what we know is we have to treat that. And so the monies that are coming in, I've not seen that be placed in any type of fund or any type of organization to help individuals who have a gambling addiction. So what I know is taking the machines or prosecuting the individuals, even if you do that to the fullest extent of the law, I think that lacks solving the problem, because we want to get the victims of crime help. And I've not seen that in this community.
But the money is coming. The DA gets the money. He just got a deal, reached a plea bargain, $300 million, whatever it was. The guy got a year's probation. But yet, where does that money go? You're saying none of that money is designated to help people kick their habits.
Absolutely.
Or to do outreach and say these things are addictive.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sure we've all been to casinos before. At least we've kind of seen, and they always have.
I walked through it.
Right, we walked through. But they always have, Gamblers Anonymous, here you can go. And I just think with those funds that are coming back in the community, that, if you really are concerned about those individuals being addicted and you're calling them the cancer of our community, you have to treat the cancer. Yeah. Well, and I don't see that being done.
Well, you're saying that you would do that.
Absolutely.
You would look at it and say, what's causing
You're right. There is a lot
of
of money that is coming in from those machines, and I think that money could be used to put resources back into Bibb, Crawford, and Peach counties.
Now, what's the size of the staff at the DA? I didn't do my research. How many people you all have on staff attorneys, support staff, and everything? How many?
For the Macon Judicial Circuit, I believe they're at about 23 or 22 attorneys.
Lawyers. Plus supporting
right.
staff, plus
yes,
clerks
sir.
and all that. The inspectors, investigators, I guess you call
Right,
them.
investigators, victim advocates, legal assistants, all of those things.
And that budget is what? What's the DA's budget? You know the annual budget of
I
the
don't
DA?
know the annual budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sure
right.
you'll know it because you're going to have to prepare it next year.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
But what are some of the other things that, innovative things or new ideas that you just burning to get in office and implement? Anything that we haven't discussed that you think should be on the front burner as far as criminal justice and the prosecutory powers of your office?
Well, we talked about criminal justice reform, so I will bring in a signature program to address criminal justice reform. And I will also bring in, the youth have always been a part of what I've done throughout my entire career. I've always placed a focus on youth, and so I believe we should be proactive instead of reactive with our youth. And there are ways to identify at-risk youth before they actually commit an offense. And so I will focus on those individuals as well and create a signature preventive initiative dealing with our youth.
Now, you are just on a pure political note. You are should be given what is known as a profile in courage. You are running against your boss, so to speak, David Cook. And you in the DA's office now?
I am in the DA's office, but for the Talladega circuit, which is a contiguous circuit.
Okay, you're not in this circuit.
No,
okay,
sir.
So
I don't think that would work.
So the question I ask you about the distribution of money, what's happened to it's not a fair question to you because you don't know. You're not in that.
No, I'm actually in Butts, Lamar, and Monroe counties,
well,
and that's where I've been.
You're in the area.
Neighboring counties, yes, sir.
But still, I think.
But I live here in Bibb County.
Well, good. We're glad you do.
Yes, sir.
But I think the question is still germane as to that money that's coming into the DA's office.
Yes.
Tens of millions, hundreds of millions that the DA is forfeiting. And I don't know whether that money, like you said, whether it gets to do any good for those people who are addicted. Do we put it in youth programs, or what happens to that money? And opposed to, does it supplement the budget that he has? Is it shared in the general fund? I don't know. I would like to know that.
Is it going to other counties?
I don't know.
You know,
I like to know that. We have about 2 minutes left, and I want you to take this time and tell people why they should vote for Anita Howard,
yes, sir.
A young lady who went to Valdosta State, went to law school in Oklahoma City, and did all the great things, and worked her way up, and now she wants to be the top prosecutor in our. Tell us why we should vote for you.
Well, a vote for me will be a vote for fairness, a vote for criminal justice reform, a restoration in the community's confidence in the criminal justice system. I will focus, as I said, on bringing signature initiatives to Bibb, Crawford, and Peach counties, one being a criminal justice reform initiative, the other being a youth preventive initiative. This is my community. I know that we can do better than this. We will do better than this. I ask for your support. I ask for your vote, and I ask for your prayers. And if I can please, if I can get my website information.
Yes, please. It's your 2 minutes.
Thank you. The website is www.AnitaReynoldsHoward.com. I'm also on Facebook as Anita Reynolds Howard. My personal page also have a political page. And so I would just ask all of you to please follow, please share anything that you find on those pages that you like and that is encouraging to you. I know that I will bring a different perspective, a perspective of being tough when I need to be, but always being fair regardless of the socioeconomic status of someone, and serving you with a compassionate heart.
Well, if that's your platform, people ought to go out and vote for you. Of course,
Yes,
I can't tell people who to vote for on this program, but we definitely encourage people to vote.
Yes.
And I know you're doing everything you can, scratching, looking on every rock for every vote, and that's what it's about. How's it going, by the way?
It's going.
Campaign.
It is going well. Okay. It's going great. I've gotten so much support from the community, various churches, law enforcement. People are really looking for a change.
And you represent that change.
That's right. And I've told them what my platform is, so they're excited. We're excited. Every day I'm getting invitations for different speaking engagements, and I'm taking all that I can.
Well,
so,
we
yes.
appreciate you accepting the invitation to be here on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. You've been in the spotlight. We've been in the spotlight with Miss Anita Howard, who is running for the district attorney's office here in the Bibb, Crawford, and Peach County Circuit. I think you call it Middle Georgia Circuit. And the election, of course, is coming up May 19th.
May 19th of 2020.
2020 is the primary. If you don't know there's an election coming up next year, maybe you're not going to vote. But thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us. All the best to you.
Yes, sir.
Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye, everybody.